I'm Robert Hall, the owner of American Powertrain. I want to show you a few things about the TKO. Customers call in all the time asking about what different things are on the outside of the transmission, and also sometimes when they're trying to explain their problem, they're not speaking the same language, they're not using the same terms as the tech. So I just want to get everybody on the same page. So up front, of course, you have the input shaft, but at the end of it, this is the pilot shaft. This is where the pilot bearing is in the crank, the pilot shaft goes into there, and this is called the bearing retainer because it retains the bearing into the front of the transmission. And the outside diameter of the bearing retainer, this is a very precise, almost machine fit into the bell housing, and that's what actually lines the transmission up into the bell. The only thing the bolts do is keep the transmission from falling off of the bell housing. Around here we have the fill plug and the drain plug, and up on top we have this vent. And the vent needs to be able to move up and down. It lets pressure out of the transmission from when the fluid is heating and spinning around. It releases some gases. If this is crushed or pinned up against the floor, the transmission can actually build up enough pressure to cause leaks in other places. And then over here is the speedometer sending unit for an electronic speedometer. It has mechanical on the other side, and I'll show you that in a minute. But that can also be used as a vehicle speed sensor if you're running fuel injection. This, of course, is the mounting pad. And around back where the output shaft sticks out of the tail housing is this little rubber seal, and that is a dust boot. That only keeps dirt out of the transmission, doesn't hold fluid in. There's another seal a little further up. It's something you have to be sure you handle properly. On the back end of this, when it comes out of the box from Tremec, there'll be a rubber plug up in there. That rubber plug has to be removed before you put in the drive shaft yoke. You might want to leave it in when you're installing the transmission because it can keep fluid from inside of the transmission from coming back. But when you remove it before your installation of the drive shaft, be very careful. If you reach way up in there with needle nose pliers, you can actually damage the seal up inside the transmission, and then you'll have it all back together and it will leak. In this little harness, we get a lot of questions about this. This is a neutral safety switch. It's something that's totally your option to use. It does not affect the operation of the transmission at all. But when you have this wired into your ignition system, the car will only start when it's in neutral. If you don't want to use it, tie it up out of the way, or cut off the wires, or remove that and install a plug. This is where you would install a mechanical speedometer. So this would have, from the factory, a cover plug, but you can remove that plug, install the mechanical cable, or if you are not going to be running if you're going to be running electronic, you will use the blanking plug in there to keep fluid from exiting the transmission. Moving on around, this is the backup light switch, and that is not threaded. Those are actually just knurls on there, so you cannot run a nut down, and that's why we have a snap-on, weather-tight electronic backup light switch harness. That never touch. That actually holds part of the reverse engagement in there. If you take that out, you drop parts inside of your transmission. And that is a walk around of the TKO.